the danger never hits the family.
Are we the problem?
But again, we don't know why.
I will just be like, well, I'm just not going to talk about it.
Again, you're still in your masculine because you're leading.
All right, Mark, what is going on, brother? We're talking about the modern man. We're talking about what it takes to be the modern man. We're going to be talking about why men fail in therapy. That one's got me really, really intrigued to what we're going to go down there. But brother, it's great to have you here, man.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah,
to have the conversation and chat with your listeners.
Me too. And so, how many people ask you how to pronounce your last name?
Oh, everybody.
Okay,
everybody.
cool. How do you do it?
It's Azoulay, like Azoulay on the beach, basically.
Azoulay on the beach.
Yeah, it's a Moroccan Jewish name. It's pretty rare here in the States. Yeah.
Azoulay. Okay, that's
Azoulay.
Cool. My name is Marc Azoulay.
Yeah.
I might have had more dates if I would have had a name like that. So
yeah, it sounds very exotic, you know.
It does.
Yeah.
Very exotic. So well, tell me, you're married. How long?
Yeah, so we recently got married actually. So I got married in June.
Wow.
So newly married. Yeah.
Dude, you're in the honeymoon stage.
I know. It's still all good. It's still all good.
But does it feel weird?
A long time ahead of before. So now we're trying to like have kids, and we want to get marriage as like the first step towards that.
How long did you guys date before you got married?
Oh, we did it for 5 years.
Okay, well, that's not too bad. I mean, so did you know she was the one though? Like when you guys first started dating, like 5 years ago, you were like, I think this might be a keeper.
That's a whole nother question. I did a lot of therapy to date her, to be able to date her. I dated kind of like the same woman along before, you know, dated hot messes, highly emotional, highly sexual, highly chaotic women, and took like 10 years of therapy to be able to find Caroline, who's my current wife, who's like stable and like would be a good mom and is loving and compassionate. So I mean, that's a whole nother podcast episode topic, but yeah, I did know, I think, at that point, after I'd done a lot of work to like decouple from my toxic patterns.
I would love to unpack that a little bit, but it sounds, what's your wife's name?
Caroline.
It sounds like Caroline is on the unicorn spectrum, right? Have you seen that YouTube video, that guy who's like, okay, if she's a 10, then she's a psychopath. If she's a 2, but it's like right in the middle. If she's an 8 and has a kick-ass personality and loves to have sex and loves to have fun and all this other stuff, like hold on to her for dear life. She's the unicorn. So it sounds like Caroline might be the unicorn.
That's where she's at. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, you know, it's funny. You and I share this history of dating like really probably crazy, you know, full throttle, no throttle type women with lots of like sexual energy, but also lots of other crazy energy that goes along with that. But was this a pattern for you? Like dating?
It was a pattern. Yeah. I mean, we could dig into that, right? I mean, it's not going into too much detail. It's very similar to my mom. So my dad and my mom's relationship is kind of what I mirrored. So he's like the stable provider, you know, like just rock solid for himself, for his greater family, for us, you know. And my mom is like highly chaotic, right? Like super attractive in her time, very like can be mean to him and to us growing up, right? But it's like very like just wild, right? It's like wild femininity, you know, which is, I think for masculine dudes, it's very attractive to us, right? Like we want that like chaos, we want that joy, we want that like wildness, right? That I think if we're very like locked down, we're not going to have in our lives. Yeah. But the issue is like, at least for me, right? We talked about nice guy a little bit before. Is like I was a nice guy, right? So like I didn't have the ability to contain that wildness that I was finding in my previous partners. So I would get run over. You know, I would get totally just bulldozed by whatever was going on. I would get totally enamored. You know, I would do whatever she wanted. You know, I'd be a doormat, frankly, right? And like she would have a complete, you know, control over me. Really, you know, because she pays with sex, right? There's a lot of excitement. And I didn't have, my personality wasn't developed to a point. So a lot of my personality was like, oh, I'm dating like the hot, crazy woman, right? That was my kind of sense of self. So it took, like I said, a lot of therapy to like build myself up and become a more solid man to be able to like not be dependent on that in my relationships.
Yeah. I hear you, man. I used to be attracted to that as well. Yeah. I'm repulsed by it now. Like I just don't like, I can't even like engage in that kind of energy. Like if I was single, I'd be like, yep. And I'm walking the other way. See ya. I'm out. But like, I think that's because like I was raised in that environment just like you. So like, I think my mom and your mom were probably pretty similar. I saw her, you know, she had these really ebbs and flows, and I saw her like really get started on like these relationships where the energy and the connection was crazy high, and then it would just go to absolute crap. And I saw my mom like emasculate and just destroy and disrespect men too. Like, and
Yep.
I don't know, like maybe that's for me. But I did date kind of like you. I dated women like that, and I was like, oh man, I do not want this. And Jessica sounds like Caroline to some degree, where she's very stable, really cool, just a kick-ass woman. And I'll tell you, man, we got to hold on to these unicorns.
You got to hold on to them, right? I mean, people like
Yeah.
know how to communicate, like women
Yeah.
that know how to resolve conflict, right? That can like stay fairly rational through it and like doesn't see me as the enemy. I think that was one of the main things, right? Is like in my past relationships, it would get adversarial, right? And I would do it too. I'd be like, oh, you're doing this to me. You're my enemy. I'd be the victim, right? Or I'd be the villain. And with Caroline, like everything is like the love is there. And it's like, okay, we might be having a disagreement or we might be, going in the wrong direction. We can come together and like move forward as a team. It never gets adversarial. We're never like mean to each other. There's no personal attacks or anything, which was not the case in every single other relationship that I had before that.
You, you know what's crazy, man, is like you talk about these personal attacks and being adversarial, it's me against you.
Yeah.
Even in the workplace, that's not the way we would treat people,
Mhm.
but somehow, some way in the most intimate, most important relationship of our lives, with our partner, we'll put up with that or we'll do it, all day long, which is kind of fascinating if you think about it. But I'm really excited to get into this. I know you guys don't have kids. I know you guys are currently trying, which is fascinating to have you on the show. But I want to go back to your childhood just a little bit since you talked about your dad and that the relationship dynamics and some of the things you saw. First, really easy question: did you have siblings?
Yes. Yeah. I
How
have a younger
how many?
sister. One. Yeah. One
One
younger
sister.
sister. Yeah.
Did she notice the same things you did growing up?
She did, but it's always a different experience. I'm from like, I said a Moroccan Jewish family where we have traditional values and like boys and girls are treated very differently in the family. So I was kind of groomed to be my dad, right? To be like dependable, reliable, kind of emotionless, just like a rock solid doer. And my sister was allowed to be more feminine, right? So she was very emotional. She was a little bit more spoiled in some ways, just like the standards were not as high because being in a Middle Eastern culture, right, like men are held to that really high, very narrow standard, and women, for better or for worse, are in a lower standard.
That makes sense. Yeah. And I mean, what did that teach you about just relationships growing up? I mean, the things that you probably wanted and the things that you probably absolutely didn't want.
Yeah, I mean, it was real confusing, man. I got to be honest, right? I mean, I think, yeah, growing up around masculinity, right, I compared myself to my dad, and I wasn't him because I was like 8, you know. And just what you're saying about the workplace. So my dad was I mean, still alive, but he's retired now. He was a small town dentist. I grew up in like rural Maryland. So in our town, he was like a celebrity, right? Everybody knew him because he was everybody's dentist, right? So like everybody knew him. He was super charismatic, super gregarious, right? He was always like a great surrogate father to a lot of my friends. My parents are still together, but many of my friends were divorced. Parents were divorced, and they didn't have fathers. So my dad like took in a bunch of my friends and like treated them almost like sons and daughters of his own. He was like the strongest man I've ever known, right? And he's still an incredible man, right? I really, really respect and love my dad. However, behind closed doors, right? Just like you were saying, behind closed doors, he would be constantly being emasculated by my mom. He would constantly be getting cut down. It would never be enough. Like there was nothing he could do right. And that was really confusing to me as a young boy growing up. And my mom was also, she was a first wave feminist. And again, love my mom now, our relationship's a lot better. But she was a first wave feminist. So a lot of what she would tell me was like, men are bad, men are predators, men are, oppressive to women, a lot of like don't be like your father, like notice how your father does this, like don't ever do that to a woman, like very directly, right, very directly and very impassionately educating me around relationships and being a man. And I wish I had a better story with that, but what happened is it really overwhelmed me and shut me down, frankly. I just like kind of, I was really shy as a kid, but I mean now I can talk, right? But I think as a kid I was just really overwhelmed and confused and didn't want to get attacked or didn't want to be on the other side of the aggression. So I just really like kept everything really close to my chest.
So do you think that's why you're doing what you're doing today and you probably know a lot about the nice guy syndrome?
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I can keep going with my story because I think it's common for a lot of guys. Is like, I started doing drugs, so I'm in recovery. I've been sober for 15 years, which being 34 tells you that I went hard and fast when I was young. So the minute I got out of there and I was that kind of shut down kid, I found, outcast culture, drug culture, punk culture, like that was more accepting of me. And I felt like I could be myself, when I was in college and a young adult. So I just went like really hard on drugs because, it was like, it was me. It was something that I think like helped kind of get me out of my shell. It was connecting with a community of people that kind of all were damaged or wounded in a way, so I felt some kinship there. And I think a lot of guys do that. It's like they come out really confused from childhood and they just go to, drinking and drugging. And, you know, that's a story for a lot of guys I work with.
Wow. I can relate to that a lot. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
get into the drinking and drugs, but like I definitely saw what you saw growing up, and it was really confusing. I was that nice guy too. Like I was just like, well, I guess this is just the way you operate in relationships. And then you learn like, wow, it's actually really unappealing and really unattractive for a
Yeah.
man to operate like that within a relationship, which is probably one of the reasons we're treated the way that we are.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about this. Like, you know, what do you in your practice, right? And working with men, what do you find is the biggest gap when it comes to just relationship dynamics like this? And I understand probably communication is going to be one of them, but I'm talking like really, really specifically, like maybe one or two, maybe even three themes that you see constantly in your practice, just over and over and over and over again. And you're just sitting there saying to yourself, if the rest of the world just knew these couple things, relationships probably be a little bit different. So what are they?
Yeah, for sure. I got a ton of them. I'll do them one at a time because I'm sure you'll
Yeah.
have comments on them, and I want to hear your thought too because I know you've talked to a lot of dads. So the biggest one, right? The biggest one difference between male and female, and we'll call masculine and feminine, right? The heteronormative for this conversation for simplicity, is like what men don't get about women is that women enjoy bad emotions and women connect through bad emotions. So I'll illustrate that, right? Like as a guy, we always kind of want to be happy or strong or sexually aroused or powerful. Like we have a set of good emotions and we're always trying to get to that point. And you see it with tons of guys, and me too, right? It's like we want to get that next fitness regimen, we want to get our nutrition dialed in, we want to get that next job, we want to get the, hot wife, right? Because we're trying to get to this like level of happiness, right? And happiness is a feeling, right? We want to feel powerful and masculine in the world. And if we could feel that way all the time, we would be happy. We don't need sadness, we don't need grief, we don't need disgust, we don't need shame, we don't need any of that stuff. Like if we could be on our top shit all the time, we would love to be there, right? So men are kind of orienting to the emotional world in that way of trying to optimize and be kind of like as happy as possible, right? There's issues with that, and we can get to that later. But like I think most men are kind of in that frame of mind, right? Women are the opposite. They want to feel the same thing that their partner feels. So if you look at, how women look at TV that's made for women, right? It's stuff that is high drama. It's stuff that goes through the entire emotional spectrum. There's sad moments. There's, happy moments. There's moments of disgust. There's moments where you get to judge the people on the screen, right? It's this whole wave. And if you see women engaging with this stuff together, they're all feeling the same thing. So even if like they're sad, if they're sad in community, if all bunch of women are sad together, they feel really, really connected in that. And they actually would, in some ways, prefer to be sad as long as they are connected. So I think what a lot of guys make the mistake of is when we see our female partner going through a bad emotion, we want to kill it, right? Because we're that hunter mentality, right? We want to be like, oh, you're sad. Let me make you happy, right? Because I want to be happy. Like, let me make you happy. Let me do whatever it takes to make you happy. The nice guy thing kind of comes out of that. It's like not being able to like connect through emotions. But really, what the woman wants is for you to be sad with her. And I see this all the time, right? It's like the guy, and I've done this, right? The guy will like be rational, will try to be like really calm, will try to be really intellectual, try to be really like grounded, while our female partner is like upset or angry. And it just makes the connection way, way worse, right? It creates that gap. And what a lot of the women see, what they perceive in us is like, oh, he doesn't care, right? Like if he cared like I cared, he would be sad like me, right? Where we're like, oh, I'm just trying to like fucking, hold the rock down and like reason through this situation. So I see that as like one of the major disconnects between men and women in a relationship is like the role that emotions play and whether you connect with them or not.
Why is it
So
that men don't like I feel you on this, man, big time.
yeah,
And like sometimes when my wife complains, I'm just like, "Oh, can we just find the happy button right now?" But
yeah,
I'm also very empathetic, right? And I try to validate her emotional state and that kind of thing. But there are sometimes, where I don't try to fix it, but I do this one thing, and you could probably just analyze the heck out of me, and maybe other guys do this too. Like my wife would be like, "Oh my God, the house is such a mess. It just drives me crazy. These kids leave their stuff everywhere." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, it upsets me too." But I also really like seeing their shoes on the floor because that reminds me our kids are still here.
Mhm.
So I kind of like slide those in just a little bit.
Yeah,
So I don't try
yeah,
to
yeah.
fix the problem, but I try to like maybe shine just a little bit of a different light on it, like kind of inadvertently. But I'd love for you to give me your psychological opinion on that one. Is that
No,
is that is that good or
that's a
not
good
good?
strategy. No,
Oh, it
no,
is?
yeah,
Okay.
it's a good strategy. Yeah, I think as long as it's authentic, because I
Yeah.
think what your wife, again, this is where a lot of men make a mistake. I fall into trap all the time. It's like it's not about the cleaning of the house, right? Which is like so confusing to guys because like you're talking about the house. You could clean it. I could clean it. I'll
Yeah.
stay up all night and clean it if it like solves the problem, right? I mean, we're willing to like do those heroic efforts. Like we live,
Right.
right?
We
But
do.
what she's saying is she's like, hey, let me just like open up the door of my brain and just like kind of tell you exactly what I'm feeling and thinking right now. It
Yeah.
is extremely present moment. Whereas again, as men, like we don't express that way. We only talk if it's moving towards an action or moving towards an end goal. We don't just
Right.
like be like, hey, here's like the temperature in the room, right? Like we just like literally don't know how to communicate that way. So she's like,
No, we
hey, here's like
don't.
what I'm feeling right now. And she may not feel that 15 minutes later, and she probably didn't feel it 15 minutes before. But again, we think it's like a pervasive problem that needs to be like solved.
Yeah.
So when you sneak in that little piece, again, as long as it's real, what she's wanting you to do is do the exact same thing she's doing. She's wanting you to like again open up that brain door and just like give her a snapshot of what you're thinking. So when you're like, yeah, when I see those shoes on the floor, I feel like a warm and fuzzy feeling inside, knowing that our house is full of love and children, and like you and I are parents together, and we're great parents. Like as long as that's real, that's what she wants. Right. She just wants to connect with like literally what is happening right now in the present moment.
So it's okay to say that, but we probably shouldn't be like, well, it's just a reminder that our kids are still under our roof. And if you saw that too, you'd probably be happy like me.
Yeah, yeah. If you go a step further, then you're just like trying to, yeah. Then it's like Inception,
Yeah.
right? You're trying to like sneak the thought in there a
Right.
little bit. Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
only time to ever do that is never, ever, ever. Right.
yeah.
But yeah, that's really fascinating to me. But I have a funny story that I think might hit this one home because like I
Okay.
have like the thickest probably skull of them all. Like it takes me a while to get lessons through this thick skull.
Mhm.
But I've known my wife for 28 years. We've been married for 21, and she's my best friend. She's awesome. I love her to death. But she's also has to put up with what she calls 10 balls, right? Which is four boys and me. So like there's five men that she's
Yeah, yeah.
surrounded by. And this story, it's really, really quick, but like my 18-year-old, like I went down, like, dude, I mean, maybe I did this growing up. I don't remember being this filthy, but maybe I was. But like I have a 16-year-old and 18-year-old, and like, dude, I don't even like to piss in their bathroom. Like I'm just like,
Mhm.
what in God's name happens in here? So like I went in there, this was just a few weeks ago, and there was trash overflowing out of the can. Like, and it's little, I understand. And there's like they strategically placed trash around the trash can. And I'm like,
Mhm.
are you freaking kidding me right now? So like I went down to my 18-year-old, my 16-year-old, I'm like, hey guys, listen, you need to empty that trash. And they're like, we know we're gonna get to it this weekend. I was like, no, no, no. You don't really seem to understand. I was like, every time your mother passes by this, she sees it. And she hasn't said anything out loud, but I know it's just annoying the heck out of her. So like you need to empty the trash. And they're like, well, no, we'll get to it. We'll get to it this weekend. It was like Thursday. And I was like, I don't think you're really understanding the point. And they're like, no, it'll get done. I was like, no, no, no. It's the thing that you're waiting to do it when in actuality it takes what 20 seconds to
Mhm.
do it. I was like, so if you just do it, it will be better. And they're like, I don't understand why it's so important that we empty the trash. And I looked at my son, I smiled, I go, sons, it's not about emptying the trash. It's actually that it's on your radar to do it.
Mhm.
That's what actually moves the needle for your mom. Like the fact that you are conscious and aware
Yeah.
that it needs to be done and it's on your radar and you're not neglecting it on purpose because the message you're sending to your mom is eventually she'll do it.
Mhm.
And even though that's not true because you're going to do it, that's how she perceives it. So
Mhm.
take your 20 seconds and impress your mom, right? and know that, and just let her know this is on my radar. I'm a responsible human being and an adult that takes care of my stuff and picks up after myself. Right.
Mhm.
But what are your thoughts on just that alone right there? Like just that, just it's not about necessarily the trash. It's being aware that the trash needs to be empty, and it's the fact that it's on your radar. And I live here, and I'm conscious of my environment. I'm going to pitch in.
Yeah. Yeah, I have two thoughts. One is like, one's like a weird psychoanalytic thought. I'll do that 1 second. The first thought is, yeah, like I think it's dead on, right? It's about co-investment, you know? So again, I don't know your wife, but it sounds like she cares about her home, right? She does a
Sure.
lot of work to like make a beautiful home. She cares about her family. She's investing a lot of time, energy, emotions, money in the house, right? So when she sees like your sons disrespecting it in her mind, right? It's that same thing. Like women are always kind of pinging like, does X person, my partner, my kid, my friend, do they care enough? Do they care enough about me, about what I care about? Are we connected through what we decide to invest and really like care about, right? Like caretake, nurture, raise, right? So like when she's seeing that, it's the same thing. It's like she cares a lot, and she's seeing that, and she's like, oh, my sons don't care at all. So that gap is the thing that is hurting her,
Right.
right? Like the gap of being like, oh, and then you see, people down the line say, oh, my kids are ungrateful, right? They're spoiled, they're, taking advantage of me, right? Like, got to teach them a lesson, right? But that all comes from that caring gap that I think is there in the beginning.
I think you're right. It's like, hey, do other people see what I see? Do they even care? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I want to dive into why therapy doesn't work for men. And
Mhm.
I want to start with something that I saw on Chris, I think it's Wilkerson's podcast. I follow him. I think he lives in Australia, but he's got a huge podcast. He's had huge celebrities on his show. And one of the guys who is on his podcast, I can't remember his name. He was wearing a cowboy hat. He had a big long beard. I think he's in a TV show, but I'm not really sure which one. But he said something really interesting on the show with Chris that really, really got my attention, and it's made me think about it for like the past 3 days. I just thought it was kind of fascinating. He said this, and it made me think about therapy. He said, "Real men don't need to go to therapy to necessarily talk about their feelings.
Mhm.
What they really, really want is for his family to recognize and appreciate and respect the fact that he's carrying probably a lot of weight on his shoulders. And it's
Yep.
just the fact that he's carrying it. He doesn't need to talk about it. He doesn't need to vent about his feelings or anything like that. He just wants the respect and appreciation that look, dad is working really, really hard, right?
Mhm.
And dad is shouldering a ton. And man, we love him for that. And we appreciate him for that. And I don't know what it was about that segment. I was like, man, I think I just unraveled, some of the things that I bought into about like how much therapy maybe a man needs, or is that just it? And to be honest, I'm completely torn, totally torn. I don't know if that's appropriate. I don't know if it's inappropriate, but what do you think?
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, I'll add to it, but I guess I'll talk about that point first. I think there's a lot of truth in being in therapy. We're called that seen, right? Like just seen for all the shit you're doing, seen for how hard it can be, seen for all those invisible things that I think as men we do. Again, good and bad, whatever. But like a lot of men, like they handle the finances on their own. A lot of guys are constantly fixing shit around the house. A lot of guys are kind of like the way I talk about with my dudes is like we're taking care of threats that don't exist yet. It's like when you think of like the CIA, right? The CIA like is killing people. They're taking care of all these threats out there in the world. They're preventing all these catastrophes. And you never hear about that, right? You only hear about when there's a corruption or when something goes wrong or when it's like a high ticket thing. But there's like a ton of shit that these organizations are doing that men and dads are doing that never gets seen because the danger never hits the family. Like you never run out of money. Nope, the people don't get sick, right? Like the car doesn't break down, right? Like all these kind of like crises are not happening because I think as men we are just like building the perimeter, right? We're like reinforcing the defensive network, and I think a lot of guys don't get
Wow.
recognized for that. You know?
That is so true and
Yep.
so good.
Yep.
How, just out of curiosity, that point you just made, is this something that it's been a part of your practice and how you help men through things, or is this something that kind of emerged a long period of time through your practice and just something you learned on your own?
Well, it's something from actually a lot of classical men literature and looking at mythology and the idea of traditional masculine and feminine roles. So, kind of what I pulled that from is literally the masculine is something that creates the wall, right, around the village, and the women is what inhabits the village. So, again, as men, we need women because if we're just building walls, which again, a lot of single guys are doing, but there's no village to protect, what's the point? Right? It's just like it's just worthless, you know. It's just empty. A lot of guys feel like we're just really defensive, we're really rigid, we're really just like angry, but there's nothing of value to protect. You know, another way that's from kind of like Tantra is the idea is that masculine is the bowl and femininity is the water. So similarly, right? Like as men, we hold water and it's a bowl. So it's not like rigid. It's not like a pipe or a tube. It's like, you know, it can slosh around. You can see it, right? But women need the bowl or else kind of what we are talking before with the women that we dated, the water just goes everywhere, right? It's just chaotic. It's not contained. It can't be utilized for anything. So kind of pulling from those ideas.
Man, that is really, really good. So can you say
Yep.
that one more time? So men create the wall around the village, and then
Yep.
women do what?
Women are the village and they inhabit the
Okay.
village and they decorate the village and they build the houses and they plant the crops, right? Like they are enriching what we protect,
Oh man, that's so good.
right? Like that's what it is, you know. So again, you know, back in relationships, like you can't judge women for not being the wall. You
Yeah.
have to appreciate them for
Yeah.
bringing in the beauty into life.
I don't even think we
Yeah.
would want them to be the wall. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like, like that's something that like my wife, she tells me like, is that a cat?
Yeah, I had a cat. I turn on my
Mr. Bigglesworth. No, I'm
background
kidding.
noise. There you go. Yep.
My wife, she like she's pretty independent. Like
Mhm.
she's like one of those chicks, like she's kind of like a rough and tumble. She grew up with, a blue collar dad on dirt bikes, doing buggies, wrestling with her brothers. Like, she's kind of a badass. But like she'll grab the keys to her car, it'll be like 20 degrees outside. She's like, I need to pull the car in the garage. I was like, you ain't doing that. I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like, her tires get low, right? And she's like, I need to go air out my tires. I was like, I'll go up air up your tires,
Mhm.
things like that. Like, I don't want you going outside and doing this. That's my job, right? I don't want you going in the freezing cold water, freezing cold air, filling up your tires, bending over, exposed. Somebody can come up behind you and do something. I'll go out and do that. Right. So like I think men really embrace that, like, hey, let me protect this village. I'm going to build a wall around it. That's my job. And I love this, like how women enrich the village, right? I love that aspect. But going back to why is it that men fail in therapy? And I'll be honest, man, I've done therapy for 20 years. And you know, there's a part of me, man, like I'm just like, I'll do therapy for like seasons. I do therapy every year, like, and I'll do it for anywhere from like a month to a few months or whatever, just to proactively help me through some things. But the odd thing, and I'm not putting therapy down at all, but I get more out of coaching as a man
Yeah.
than I do with therapy, but I don't even know why that is.
Because I think coaching is more masculine. I mean, that's kind of where I'm
Okay.
going with it, right? It's like it's more action oriented and
Yeah.
it's less awareness oriented, right? So I think, I mean, that's kind of like the thrust of the point I was going to make, right? Is like back to talk about the difference between men and women. You know, the therapy industry was created by men, and that's kind of the people that I study, all these psychoanalytic individuals, right? Freud and Jung and Adler and all these dudes, right? And but now it's an incredibly female dominated industry, right? It's kind of similar to like nursing, right? It's kind of like a caretaking industry. So what happens is therapy has changed significantly away from, action oriented stuff, what's called depth psychotherapy, which is what I practice, which is again, it's like it's a quest. You're trying to like get to the root of the problem and like the nastiest shadow thought you have. We're talking, violence and sexuality and all the stuff that like is kind of, dangerous to talk about, right? And becomes what I like to call validation therapy, right? Which a lot of men, not only does it fail, right? It makes men worse. It is actively hurting men
Really? Like how
because,
so? Like how so?
right? So, kind of another kind of roadmap thing that I have in my practice is men go from villain to victim to hero to guide. Okay. So a lot of men come to therapy feeling like a villain. I work with a lot of divorced individuals. I work with a lot of guys that have drug abuse issues. I have a lot of guys that, maybe they had a domestic violence incident, right? They put their hands on somebody, right? and like they come in feeling like a villain, like I am evil, right? I've done something horrible. Because most guys, like everyone I've worked with, no one's like a sociopath. No one is actually a villain. No one is like excited that they like hit their wife, right? Like every single guy that I've spoken to feels like they're the villain and they're like, I don't know what to do. This is the bottom, rock bottom. I never thought I would do this. You know, maybe I'm like my father or whatever their story is, right? So the first step is going from villain to victim, which is what most therapy starts and begins with, right? So saying like, okay, all right, maybe you put your hands on your wife or your kid, but like it's not your fault, right? It's your childhood. You know, you had an abusive father, or you drank, you have an alcohol problem, or you know, you were a nice guy and you have a lot of repressed anger, and like it's not your fault, right? You're a victim. And I think for guys, right, we need that because we need to get out of that villain mentality, but we don't want to feel like victims. And a lot of therapy
We
ends at that
don't.
victim level of like blame your childhood, blame your parents, blame culture, blame women, blame whatever, right? And I
Can't
think
stand that.
that you can't stand it, right? And me
Yeah.
neither. And I think like if you're a masculine integrated dude, like I know you are, it's like at some point you're like, why am I talking to this person if they're just making me feel like a victim? Right? There's no accountability. It's just like a pity party. Like, what is the point of coming into this room and just like being sad about shit that happened like 20 years ago?
Oh my
Right?
God. Yeah, I feel like you're in my head right now.
Yeah, yeah. The therapy industry is really failing men. It's a huge problem, right? So, you know, then the next step is going from victim to hero. And that's where kind of like a coaching mentality comes in. I use that a lot, and a lot of my, you know, employees use that a lot with our clients of like, okay, you know this shit, right? You have a deck of cards. Some cards are good, some cards are shitty. Maybe you're missing a couple, maybe you have a couple extra. The game now is how do you play that deck of cards to the best of your ability, right? That's the hero mentality. And if you look at, you know, I love mythology. If you look at, you know, Marvel movies, that's kind of a more recent example. All these heroes are traumatized. Every single one is traumatized. Look at Spider-Man, right? Grief, loss, he's keeping secrets, but his power comes from his trauma, right? He doesn't let that hold him back. You know, Captain America doesn't let the fact that he was frozen in ice and was like out of time and like lost his family and lost his whole culture hold him back. No, he harnesses that to become a real role model, to become a hero. So it's like, okay, like, you know, with me and maybe a little bit with you, it's like, I know a lot about toxic femininity, right? So, like, what if I'm using that to now educate other men? Or what if I'm using
Yeah.
that to be more in tune with my emotions so I can be a role model for other guys? You know, what if I'm using that to help educate around these masculine and feminine principles that was counter to what I learned growing up, right? I learned that everyone was the same and that men were a little bit worse, right? Instead of like, no, it's two different roles and they're different, but they're equal, you know? So you go to hero, and then at some point, and I think most guys want to get to this, you go to guide. And I think that is also heavily missing in our culture. And I know you're doing that with your show, right? And the work that you do. But it's like the idea of like being a mentor and a role model. And it's not even about you anymore, right? It's about guiding
Right.
other people. You know, maybe it's getting involved in your community, maybe it's getting involved in your church, maybe it's getting involved, you know, volunteering at the school, right? Like whatever it is, doesn't really matter. But like being a positive guide for other people and specifically other young men that need that growing up. So again, therapy stops at victim, and I think like men need to at least get to hero and ideally get to God.
I think so. This all makes sense to me. I'm sitting here unpacking like 20 years of therapy of like, once I get to a certain point within therapy,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm done talking about my feelings. What should I do about this now?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so that makes total sense where I'm just like, okay, especially the victim thing, man.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, let's talk about that for a minute, but I do not want to dwell on this because like that's not what I want.
Yep.
Let me ask you this. I think it's important though from a therapy going to therapy to get some understanding. I mean, do you agree with that? Like, I mean, if
Yes.
anything I think therapy does provide is it gives you some clarity of like, hey, you're in the spot you're in now. Let's point back to some things that have happened to you. Let's unpack those. Let's get some clarity around those. Let's understand maybe why you're operating the way you are or thinking the way you are or whatever. But I think is it accurate to say that if we were going to really help men, it's like, okay, we can't stop there though. Like we have to be more action oriented. Like I love this thing where you're talking about going from hero to guide. And is that one of the biggest gaps that you think in therapy is we never quite get there? I know it also it probably resides on the actual therapist because not all therapists are created equal. There probably are a ton out there that will help you with that hero slash guide, but perhaps do we dwell too much time on that on the villain and the victim and never really get to those other two parts in therapy?
Yeah, so you're asking a lot of good questions. I'll answer that one first, and I want to go back to a previous one. The one you said is like, yes, I think it dwells on villain and victim, and I think it's because a lot of men, a lot of therapists, right, male and female therapists, they don't know how to challenge the men, right? As therapists, we're trained not to give advice, which is stupid, right? We're trained not to share our opinion, which is stupid, right? And what happens is that's what, as a guy in therapy, that's what we want. We're
That
like, I
is
am
what we
going to an
want.
expert. Tell me what to do. Tell me what you think about me. Tell me if I'm right or wrong, right? I think again, men are looking for that mentor role model. They're looking for like a father figure that has opinions. And it's like, I can share my opinion as a therapist to a client, and it doesn't mean I'm gonna like mind control them. I'm just putting my thoughts in the room and they can agree or disagree and we can have banter and go back and forth. It's all good, right? But like, so I think as therapists, we are educated to just stop at that victim mentality and not hold people accountable. Because to be an effective therapist for a man, you got to call them on their bullshit, right? You got to be like,
You
hey, you
do.
said you were going to do this and you did that. What happened? What happened? Right? Like, get no judgment. Like, I'm not going to fire you, but like, what happened that you like came? We had a whole hour session about how you can talk to your wife about X, Y, and Z, and a week passed and you didn't do it. Like, what's the deal, dog? Right? Like, that's what a guy needs is that kind of like tough love and again that masculine accountability love, you know. But I forgot what you said earlier that I wanted to talk about, which was the point of emotions, right? So this is what I kind of pitch to my dudes, right? It's about emotional calibration, right? So
Emotional
just like
calibration.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
right. So
tell me
just
about
like if
that.
you had an old car, right, and you know we're both old cars, we've been driving for a while, right? You want to know like, okay, does my steering wheel like lean a little bit left? You know, do I need to like let off the gas because it takes a little bit while for it to change gears? You know, do I need to like stop a little bit early because my brakes are kind of giving out, right? You want to know how your car is calibrated so you can be the best driver that you can be, right? So to use myself as an example, right? I talked a little bit about my mom on this program, right? So my mom was extremely castrating of my father. Extremely, right? Objectively, I think if anyone was seeing that, they'd be like, whoa, this is like crazy, right? This is crazy the way that she's putting him down, right? So for me growing up, anytime I get close to that, I shut down and get defensive. So for instance, with Caroline, if we're out in public and she makes like a completely 100% lighthearted joke at my expense, right? It's funny. It's like not mean at all. It's just like she's like making fun of like some stupid shit I do around the house, right? I get really defensive and I get hurt and I get like cold and I get like my porcupine come out, right? Because I'm over calibrated, right? I'm overtuned because I saw that growing up so many times that my brain is like, okay, you can't let this like little joke slide because that's how it starts. You know, if you starts there, before long, you're going to be like your dad. You're going to be in your relationship that you saw growing up. You're going to be constantly castrated, constantly cut down. So like me and Caroline would have fights about that where she's like, dude, I'm just making like the tiniest little joke, but I'm oversensitive, right? Because I'm over calibrated to that. So going back and understanding the past, now I know like, okay, if I'm having an emotional reaction to a little joke, don't act out, right? I don't need to like snap at her or I need to like shut down. I need to realize, okay, my gauges are a little bit off. I need to like rein it in, take a step back, breathe, see what's happening, and then re-engage with no problem, right? So, you know, another example is addiction, right? It's like some people are going to be overtuned to addiction, more susceptible to it. Anger is another one,
Can
right?
you can you talk about that? Like,
Yeah.
so let me ask you this. I'm going to segue just for a second. Is there such thing as an addictive personality, or is that something we just made up?
Uh, it's hard to know. Personality stuff is hard to like conceptualize scientifically, but there does seem to be a genetic correlate with addiction. So
Really?
you could
So,
say if
like,
you have X amount of genes, then you develop a personality that's prone to addiction.
is it like, can you actually see it like in someone's genetic makeup, like their DNA? Like,
Yes.
I know this sounds like a super nerdy question, but I'm so curious. You can?
You literally can. Yes. We have
Wow.
identified a number of alcoholic, specifically alcoholic, not just addiction.
Yeah.
Alcoholics has the most study genes that tend to pass. We don't know exactly what they do, but there
Yeah.
is a heavy correlate between people with a certain subset of genes and alcoholism. That's the most kind of like robust study. Other drugs haven't been studied. It's hard to study drugs because they're illegal, right? So like you can't like and you can't dose people, right? You can't be like, hey, you guys
Right.
take meth for 6 weeks. You guys don't take meth, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh my God. Yeah. So this subset group over here that did heroin and meth, they didn't have the same results as just the meth controlled group.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like it's so
Oh my
weird.
God.
But
No,
yes, there's a genetic pathway.
what about like so yes, alcoholism, right? I mean, I think we a lot of people have I think we've definitely proven the science there, but what about just people who are like, oh, I have a sugar addiction or I have a
Mhm.
food addiction or I have this type like the addictions are endless. And sometimes I wonder if people are using that term to just simply identify why they're operating the way that they are and if there's actually scientific truth to that, right?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things there. One, to your point, is also kind of a gripe I have with my industry is I think therapy language is way overutilized. And what I, lovingly call like TikTok therapists, right? Like there's so much misinformation out there. And I think people, men and women, can weaponize terms like that, like addiction, like, oh, it's not my fault. I'm an addict, right? It's the same thing as being a victim, right? Oh, it's not my fault. I've been
I'm a
abused,
victim. Yeah.
right? It's all the same victim shit. And like, that's what I think, again, men are just like, get the ick from, right?
Yeah.
But as far as biological mechanisms, right, one of the main ones is downregulated dopamine. So there are a subset of individuals, I actually happen to be one, where our dopamine is downregulated, right? So we're constantly seeking dopamine because we're always at like a little bit of a deficiency, right?
Huh.
So like I'm looking for dopamine. For me, it was marijuana was like my main one. Also a ton of hallucinogens. I also did opiates, pills, right? So like ways to just like get that dopamine hit, right? As a kid, I played a shit ton of video games that were designed to just like give me dopamine all the time. I went through a period where I was looking at porn all the time, right? Like it wasn't the thing. It was just like I was trying to self-medicate and upregulate my dopamine. So for me personally, until I went on Wellbutrin, which is like an antidepressant that works on the dopamine channel, now I don't have those cravings nearly as much. You know, there's still emotional things where I want to cope or numb or whatever, but like the physiological part is, I would say, almost 100% gone because it was truly like a medical genetic component of like, yeah, my brain just like didn't squirt out enough dopamine, you know? So when I
And
work with addicts, I always look at that as a first place to start.
can
Yep,
you
go ahead.
test for that?
No, because in order to test for it, you would have to like break open someone's skull and put a like needle into their brain, right? Which is like highly problematic. So the way a lot of psychoactive medication works is kind of fucked up. But the way it works is it's kind of like reverse testing. So you
Yeah.
just do kind of like trial and error. You give people a bunch of different pills, and then based on which one works, you can then work backwards in figuring out what the particular like chemical imbalance is. You
Isn't
know,
that crazy? Like, isn't
it's
that
crazy.
really, I mean, it's so crazy to me, man. Like, because like, um, it is, so I used to be in pharmaceuticals
Okay. Yes, you
and,
know about this. Yeah.
oh my, I used to sell anti-anxiety medication. So I sold back in the day, I sold Buspar, which is buspirone genetic,
Mhm.
for Bristol Myers Squibb. I sold a couple other antidepressants, but we had to study all of them, like, and what they did, their mechanisms of action, the safety profile, side effects, a whole nine yards. And the interesting thing, like I'm talking like I'm going back to the early 2000s when we were doing this. And I remember going through pharmaceutical training. And so like for instance, like another drug I sold a lot was high blood pressure medication. I sold ACE inhibitors and angiotensin receptor blockers, so someone comes in with high blood pressure, they're like, well, it's probably one of these three drug classes. I know all of them will lower your blood pressure. It's just a matter of what side effect profile do we want, and then which one's going to be most effective for you. And usually that's done pretty easily. But with mental health medication, like I remember going through like training, they're like, okay, you have to tell your doctors that, they're going to try this, they were going to try a patient on it for at least 6 weeks, and, maybe 8 weeks to see how it's working. And the patient comes back in, they're going to report back, or they're going to have to titrate the dose. I'm like, wait, what? 6 to 8 weeks? What if it doesn't work?
Yeah.
And I remember one of the trainers going, and you've seen the loophole in mental health right there. And I was like, oh my God, there's really no other way. And here we are like 20 years later, we're still doing the same thing. We're still like, okay, we'll try this one. Okay, we'll try this one. Okay, now we'll add on to this one.
Mhm.
So it's like it is a Rubik's cube, I think, of trying to figure out like what is going on. And I'll be honest with you, Mark. I mean, the story I'm telling myself is I would hope, at least within the next 2 decades, that when it comes to mental health and medication, that there's got to be more clarity for, I think, practitioners, even for patients of like, okay, I think this is what, or even testing of like, this is what the issue might be. These are the three drugs that probably work best. Let's go ahead and give them a whirl. But right now, I just think it's like a roll of the dice.
It's totally trial and error. It's totally trial and error. And I mean, I will say that there are some genetic tests that are showing some promise where, again, we have big enough data sets of being like, okay, people with similar genes to you tend to do better on X, Y, and Z drug. But again, we don't know why. It's all just correlation. We don't know what those genes do. We don't know what genes are important. We just have like kind of clusters and we're like, hey, like maybe you don't have side effects if you have these genes. But again, we don't know the mechanism of action there. And there's a whole emotional component, right? Like, go back to drug use, right? Addiction. There's so many avenues that the guys end up there, right? Some of it can be neurodiversity, right? It can be things like ADHD. It can be significant mental illness like, OCD, right? Or things like clinical depression where you literally can't get out of bed. It can be trauma, right? Of like being exposed to a drug too early, guys that start drinking when they're, 8, 10, 11, 12. It can be a lack of emotional intelligence, right? Again, living in a family that doesn't teach you about emotions. So then when you feel anything, it feels like too much. So you learn how to drink or smoke to numb yourself out. I can keep going, but there's like 1,000 things, 1,000 ways that drugs and alcohol enter the system that like it's not always purely medical, right? There's always like a big emotional component as well.
That makes that makes total sense.
Yeah.
You've really unpacked, I think, and gave a ton of clarity on therapy. And while I think we're not discounting therapy, but I think what you did was you did a really good job of maybe helping us understand why men don't necessarily gravitate to it for a long term. But like, yeah, we're it just so you guys in the audience know we're not downplaying therapy, we're not discounting it, right? I think that it definitely has its place, but you've definitely like I've scratched my head honestly, Mark, over the years of like, why does therapy, why do I not want to do it? Like long term anyway. Like I'll do like a couple sessions with somebody and then I'll get the clarity I need. And then I just kind of get annoyed because I'm like, okay, I don't want to be negative. I don't want to complain about this anymore. Like I
Yeah.
want exactly what you're talking about. Like give me the action that I need. Give me the advice. Don't ask me more questions. Just tell me to go do this thing and I'll go do it.
Mhm.
So like I like that a lot. But I want to go into this area of um of the modern man, right? And I think the modern man is, I think we're kind of scratching our heads, at least some of us, of like what is my role here, right? And the society's telling me one thing, my partner's telling me another. If I look at this, this other thing is telling me to do this. Like, I think there's a lot of confusion out there. It's almost like fitness now, where like there's
Yeah.
so much information now. You're like, okay, what in God's name do I do? I have no idea. But yeah, I would love for you to share that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things to say about modern man. I'll say the first thing, kind of back to the therapy point, is like men are being called to be emotional and have emotional intelligence in a way we never have, literally never have, right? And feminism is a big part of that, right? I'm pro feminism, right? I think women should be equal and get jobs and be able to do whatever they want, right? But I think because of that, our role is not as clear as it's been, right? For most of human history, literally human history, right? Like the man is the killer, right? We are the breadwinner, we are the hunter, we are the protector, we are like the strong part of the family, and the women are to be protected, to produce children, and to take care of the home, right? If you look at basically every single culture on the planet for thousands of years, that is the way that it has been, and just recently that is no longer the case, right? It still is probably mostly the case, but it's changing, right? It doesn't have to be the case. So I think as men, we are being called to be emotional in a way that we have never been. I think we are evolutionarily disadvantaged at becoming, right? And we are highly resistant to it because it feels weird, right? It feels weird. It feels weak. It feels like we're sissies, we're pussies, right? It feels like wrong in a lot of ways. It's like you and I were talking, like, we don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel sad. I'm a therapist. I don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel afraid. I don't want to feel angry. I just want to feel happy and, on my own dick the whole time. Right. So, like, because of that, we have to learn these new skills. And I do think therapy is a good place for that. I will say to listeners, like, give therapy a shot, give it a year or two. Most therapists will not tell you this, but it has diminishing returns after that, especially for men. Right. What I do with my company is we then put guys in men's groups. So I'll say for your listeners, check out men's groups because you're with other guys that are holding you accountable. You all have some level of emotional intelligence and you're working towards a goal, right? You're like investing in each other's lives. It's creating a support structure for a lot of guys that don't have that, right? The church used to do that. The bar used to do that. The local inn or tavern used to do that. We don't have that anymore. So therapy does that. Men's groups do that particularly. So all that to say, right, is like the modern man has to be more emotionally intelligent. And when I tell my clients, right, they're like, I don't want to be more emotional. I don't want to be like a sad sack on the on the couch crying about my life, right? And it's like, no, masculine emotions look very different. So look at people like Martin Luther King, look at Nelson Mandela, look at Winston Churchill, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, look at The Rock, right? They are out there giving these speeches and they are leveraging emotions in a way that moves other men, right? Their speeches, their books, their writings are deeply emotional, but they're not weak, right? No one's gonna say that Martin Luther King is weak. But if you watch the "I Have a Dream" speech, right, and you guys check that out, he is emotional. He's crying during that speech, but like you're ready to get out there and die for the cause, right? If you look at generals Patton or Caesar, right, all these people that give these like rallying speeches that move men and compel like civilization defining action, right? Like serious shit, civilization defining action. It's all from an emotional base, right? And I think that there are more role models on how men can express, leverage, and use emotions to move mountains. And that's a skill that I think as men we're being called to be able to do. And it takes a lot of EQ to do that. And it takes having an ethical code, which I think, my personal opinions, I think is dramatically lacking in modern society, right? It takes an honor code. It takes doing the right thing. For me, it takes a level of spirituality, right? Because once you get this powerful weapon, right, this powerful tool, you need to be able to use it for good. So
I
I think
agree.
men are being called to like a higher standard, and we're able to be more of these leaders in the community.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, one other person that came to mind was Mel Gibson when he played William Wallace in
Yeah,
Braveheart, and he did that speech and that just
yeah,
it's like, and all of a sudden, like there was an uproar of the Scottish army, and they were just ready to kick some ass, right?
hmm,
I agree with you. There are certain emotions that I think men like to talk about, and others don't. There's certain emotions that we like to feel, and others that we don't. But I do agree with you that a very powerful, empowering, inspiring, encouraging, masculine man has high emotional IQ.
yeah,
Like he may not like to feel some of the feelings that he's feeling, but he knows what he's feeling and why
hmm,
he's feeling it. And
hmm,
I think, and I used to be one of them. I still fall into this trap every now and again, but how many grown men out there have that anger button and they're just angry and they're like, what's wrong? I don't know. Well, you seem upset. I am. Why? I don't know. I'm just pissed.
yeah,
And that's a lot of our responses. But I think emotional IQ allows us, even like this. Here's an example. And again, thick skull. You would think I'd got this figured out by now. Still don't. But I made an oath to my family that I would do this. So like when I have a bad day, I tend to go inward and I tend to wear it and I tend to shoulder it. And then people around me, I'll start to isolate a little bit. I'll be, as my wife says, cold and distant, but all I really am is I'm just in my head. And my wife pulled me aside and she goes, you know what? Are we the problem? I was like, oh my God, no. She's like, we feel like we are. She's
yes,
like, one of the best things you could possibly do, and one of the best gifts I think you could give your kids is letting us all off the hook that it's not us, that it's just a bad day. I was like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, just if we ask you what's wrong, or if you know something's wrong, one of the really coolest and masculine things that you do, and you do it every now and again, but I wish you would do it more often, is guys, I just want to let everybody know I had a bad day today. I'm kind of angry right now. I'm in my head a little bit, but if you give me like 20 minutes, I'll be good. Just let me sort some things out. Let me think about some
hmm,
things. I just want to let y'all know it has nothing to do with you. I'm just in my head. And she's like, if you did that one thing, that one emotional intelligent tool thing right there, do you know how much that would let all the rest of us off the hook? Because when you're pissed or you're in your head, we think it's us. And I was like, oh my God, it really never is you. She's like, then tell us that. And I just thought, I was like, oh my God, it's like the simplest thing in the world. You'd think I'd get that by now. But I think having emotional intelligence also gives us awareness to those who are impacted by that around us. Plus, I think the other thing too, emotional intelligence wise, is we're able to identify and help other people identify. We become better validators through conversation, don't we?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that example, right? Because it's about being a leader, right? And it's like, especially as a dad, right? As a dad, everyone's fucking aware of you, right? You're the big man in the house. You can't not be. So if you are feeling upset or sad or angry, like everyone is watching you like a hawk. And I think it is incredibly masculine, just like your wife said, to like take that, like don't pretend that doesn't exist, right? Be like, I'm leading this family. So like because I'm a leader, people are looking to me. They need to know what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And to know that's not them because they are, especially your kids, are in a power under position. They just are, right? They're your children. You can't pretend that that's not true. So like being a leader means sharing that stuff with them, knowing that like they need that information to become happy and be able to function on their day, right? Because they're tethered to you in a way that like nobody can really understand about how we feel about our parents, right? So I think that that's a big one. And being able to read the room, like you said, being a leader, being way more panoramic awareness is, I think, what the modern man really needs, because that will allow us to step into our power, like in the story you were telling, right? And not be a nice guy that kind of hides in the background and pretends like we don't exist. I see that with so many guys, right? Either guys, especially my generation, the millennials, a lot of us are nice guys. A lot of us are really quiet. A lot of us are really, really withdrawn, right? We try to just like be easy, but it's not easy. It's burdening everyone around us versus like stepping into that limelight and being able to, yeah, like wield the sword of emotions and leadership in a way that's inspiring to other people and
Yeah.
attractive to women, right? Like that's what they
Yeah.
want, actually, you know?
They do. I mean, I think that's very appealing,
Yeah.
to a woman is a guy who, you know, yes, he might feel a flurry of emotions, right? But when he can like in a masculine way identify those
Mhm.
and communicate those, but not in an estrogenic way, but in a masculine way, I think that's kind of like the golden ticket right there.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. How is that done? Can you maybe give us some best demonstrated practices?
How to communicate emotions.
Yeah, so like I have my way, which I just shared, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's better ways.
Yeah. So what I found with guys that's really helpful, and it's kind of, I don't know, kind of shows like kind of a flaw in our system though, is like what I found with women is they actually don't want you to be like that sniveling mess on the couch. They don't want like the shitty first draft of your emotions. They say they want it, but they don't. Right? I've seen that 100 times. It's like you have a guy that does a bunch of therapy. He's now
Uh,
open. He's like sharing his insecurities, and his
yeah.
wife is like disgusted, literally disgusted and
Oh my
divorcing him.
God. I'm
Right?
stealing that term, man. Did you say the first draft of what is
Yeah.
first draft of emotions?
Shitty first draft. Right?
Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah, the shitty. They don't want it. They say they want it. That's why it's confusing for men.
It
They
is,
say
yeah.
they want it, but what they're really saying is that they want us to be there for their shitty first draft, and that's another difference between masculine and feminine, right? Is like when they're crying, they want us to hold them
Okay. Yeah.
physically and emotionally hold them. They don't want to do that for us, right? But again, they're confused because they're just projecting themselves onto us. So what they do want though is they want the hero's journey, right? So the hero's journey in emotions is like, again, you go to your men's group, maybe you go to your therapist, you give them the shitty first draft, right? A good friend, right? And then you craft into the hero's journey of like, hey, you know what? Like kind of like your example, use your example. Like I woke up, I had a bad day, right? But then I thought about X, Y, and Z. I thought about how much I love my kids or how much I love you
Yeah.
guys, or I thought about how grateful I am, or I connected with God or whatever, right? And then like I put my shit together and then I like did X, Y, and Z actions. I cleaned the house, I tuned up the car, I took dog out for a walk, and like now I'm ready to engage, right? They want like the whole kind of journey that is still vulnerable and honest. Again, honesty is key because women can sniff out dishonesty in a way that as men we cannot even comprehend, right? They are always attuned to that. So it's to be honest, but like a complete package. So again, you're opening the door to your brain, like we talked about earlier. You're showing them that, but they're getting a little bit more of a complete story versus like just seeing you as kind of like a puddle on the ground. Because again, that's just like not attractive. So what they want to hear is like, here's what I'm feeling, and here's what I did about it, and now I'm better, and I learned this lesson. Again, almost like a TV show episode, like a hero's journey. Um, that can be really helpful, and it can make your woman feel a lot closer to you in that.
Oh my God, man. Like what you just shared, that was gold. That was gold. So it's like, but here's the other thing too, right? They don't want, as you coined, the shitty first draft, but they definitely don't want to, they definitely don't want you to not turn in the final draft, right?
Yes.
So it's like you gotta communicate it, right? So don't escape it, which I think a lot of us, me, I'm guilty of this as well,
Mhm.
is I will just be like, well, I'm just not going to talk about it. Like, and it'll just go
Yeah.
away, right? It'll just got to be forgotten about, whatever, right? But we probably don't want to do that either, do we?
No, because yeah, the super job, like it's done, it's turned in, I got an A, right? Like they want to read the paper, they want to like
Right.
they want to go along with the story because again, they
Yeah.
connect through emotional stories. So if you're telling an emotional story, then they're with you along the ride. Again, it's like they're watching TV, right? They're like in that journey with you, and they feel like they're walking beside you, right? Like that's really critical. Another thing, I don't know if it's true for you, but it was definitely true for me, is when I was having a bad emotion, right? So I was angry, right? Male emotions can be really fucking violent. Our emotions are really, really powerful, right? We can kill ourselves, right? Male suicide is up by it's 3 times as many men kill themselves than women, right? Our emotions can kill us. We can hurt people. We can break things in the house. We can like throw a wrench across the garage and smash a window, right? Our emotions can be really scary to us, right? So because of that, we don't want to share them with our women in our lives or with people because we're like, shit, if I can't handle this, there's no way she can handle that, right? There's no way, right? I don't want to hurt her. I don't want to scare her. I don't want to push her away. A lot of guys feel that way. I've felt that way around my bad emotions, right? Because I didn't know how to deal with them. So again, building EQ lets you be able to hold and contain your own emotions so you can then express them effectively. And what I want to say to your listeners, the main misconception is that women have way, way, way higher emotional tolerance than we do. Way
They
higher.
do. They do.
So, like, what we think is too much for them is like baby level,
Oh yeah.
right? And that's again another kind of like miscalibration piece, right? Misattunement piece is like it feels so crazy to us, but to them, they're like, oh, like I deal with that 3 times a day, every day, right? Like they can actually hold and contain our emotions, and they can teach us to hold and contain our emotions in a way that we can't. So that
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing that the feminine brings to the masculine is the ability to do that.
That's so cool, man. That is so cool. All right. I know we're going like way over time. Are you good on time?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. This is just so good. I want to keep going here. One other question I have for you, and I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. And hopefully you guys in the audience, you'll probably come along with the ride with me on this one.
Mhm.
I just explained this to my wife. And as I explained it to her, because I went through, I'll just be very honest. I don't like this time of year.
Mhm.
I don't thrive in the holiday season. I just don't. Several factors. I mean, I come from a kind of crazy background and like I don't there's a lot of people in my family that I don't speak to anymore. My mom is not even a kind of a functional human being anymore. Um, but it's more stress this time of year for me. And I'm an outdoors guy. I love sunlight. I love
Yeah.
long days. I love heat. And when it's cold, like my mental health does not do well. So I have to pull very different levers, in order to keep everything on point, right? But this is what I was kind of going through a bad week last week. It was Thanksgiving last week as you and I were recording, and there was a lot of moving parts and ebbs and flows. And I was just kind of in my head. And my wife was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I honestly don't know." And she's like,
Mhm.
"But something's got to be wrong." I was like, I know." I was like, I don't know. And I was kind of distant. I was kind of cold. I was doing that thing. I was like, "It's not you." She's like, "What is it?" I don't know. But one thing, once it took me like a few days actually, and then I came back to her and I was like, "Hey, I want to share with you what's going on." And she's like, "Why didn't you tell me that like 3 days ago?" I was like, "To be honest, I didn't know." I was like, I knew something wasn't right. I just couldn't figure out what the heck it was. And I didn't, and it took me a minute to get clear on it. And it even took me even longer to get clear on how to tell you. Like, and I wish the process sometimes wasn't so long for me, but like sometimes it takes like a few days for me to be like, okay, so this is it. Okay, so this is what's going on. Okay, now I need to figure out how to explain it. But do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is that all about?
That is again, I think it's like you building emotional intelligence, right? It's like you needed time to like lay out all the cards on the table, find the patterns, figure out whatever it was that was upsetting you, and be able to move through it. As men, we're not taught that skill. I mean, that's literally a skill, right? Again, you can think of it like a magic trick or sorting a bunch of shit, right? Like we need that. I think therapy could be helpful for that. I think your wife could be helpful for that, right? Again, asking consent, which is really critical with emotions around women, right? Being like, hey, is it okay if I just like lay out a bunch of stuff? And what I want you to do is I want you to help me put the pieces together. Again, you're still in your masculine because you're leading. You're leading, you're telling her what the game is that you guys are playing, right? She doesn't have to take care of you. She's actually being an ally in helping you sort your emotional world. So for instance, with Caroline, so because I was raised in like an angry household, I have times where I get a lot of like rage and like really nasty, poisonous thoughts, right? Like venomous thoughts, judgmental, horrible, like dirty, nasty shit, right? Like hateful stuff, not racist, whatever, but like just like really just like intense thoughts, right? So I have a word with Caroline where I'm like, hey, are you ready for some horse shit? Okay.
Oh,
And she
wow.
can
Okay.
and she
Yeah.
can say yes or no,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And like the horseshit game is like, okay, if she says yes, and it's important again to ask consent, I just don't want to blow up at her, right? Is like what I'm about to say, I need to just like get it out, right? Sometimes it's about her, sometimes it's about someone in my life, sometimes it's about my job, sometimes it's about who cut me off in traffic, whatever, right? Like, but it's gonna come out, it's gonna be shitty, it's gonna be like uncensored, it's gonna be like kind of mean, but it's like kind of like pulling the poison out of my veins, right? And then we can work through what I'm actually feeling, right? But by giving her that kind of like consent of like, hey, it's going to be a lot of horseshit right now. It's like basically I'm saying like, hey, don't take any of this seriously.
Yeah.
Don't take it personally. Like this isn't actually what I mean. I'm just like feeling something intense, and I just need to just like get it out so that I can now be more present for you or more present for whatever we're doing that day, you know. So having those like little shortcuts and like little procedures, I guess, right, can be really helpful, especially in marriage, helping to like cope and deal with emotions.
You know what is so cool about that? Well, first, everything is cool about that, but it's the approach.
Mm,
It's the, are you ready for some horseshit?
yeah.
Like, it's almost like so like, cause the story I'm telling myself, Mark, is that if you were to just dive in and be like, this is what's going on. And you just, it might feel like an attack. And she might be like, but stating like, are you ready for some horseshit? That's basically letting you know and her know what I'm about to share with you is raw. It's off the cuff. It
Hmm.
might not even make any sense. In fact, as I'm telling you this, I'm probably figuring this out as I tell you
Yeah.
because I don't even make sense of it. So don't take any of it personally because it's just me spewing, as you said, the poison out of my veins. Right.
Yeah.
And I think in that context, I think it's really fascinating. Me and my kids and just to like we have this sort of code, right? Where if we have a quote that we live by in the family, which is your honesty and ownership is celebrated and not punished.
Mm,
So that gives the kids license
nice.
to be
Yeah.
like, hey, I just did this really bad thing and I just need to tell you about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the way that they come up to us, because we tell them, we're like, okay, help mom and dad manage our emotions too. Like we don't rely on them for that, but we tell them, here's what you say to us. I need to tell you something and I need you to not get mad. And that tells us, okay, you're about ready to be really honest and raw and real about something that it's
Yeah.
taken you a ton of courage to do so. So we're going to put our emotions aside. We're not going to get mad. We're going to listen and we're just going to hear you out. And
Hmm.
that just allows that approach allows like,
Yeah.
okay, this kid's about ready to be honest. Like, let's just take it in. We're not going to take it personally. We're not going to look at them as they're like this, lost soul or whatever else. They're just going through whatever they did something wrong, period.
Hmm.
And that's something that adds like that context and that environment, I think, for the kids and us to be prepped for that kind of thing. But I love how you do that, man. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and you do it too, right? I mean, that's the thing. And what I wanted to say too is like, she can say no, right? She can say that she's not
Yeah.
ready, right? Which I think
Does
is
she do
really
that?
important. Sometimes, yeah,
Does she?
right?
And
Sometimes
do
she's
you,
going through her own shit, or like she's got something to do, and she says no, and then that lets me, again, another emotional tool. It can be like, okay, well, I'm gonna call another friend right now, right? I'm gonna
okay.
call
Yeah.
someone else. I'll talk to you in an hour, or like I'm gonna go on a hike. I'm also a big outdoors guy. I'm gonna go on a hike like for the first half of the day and just like sort it through. But then again, she knows what I'm doing. It's just letting her
Yeah.
in, right? It's building that emotional connection to be like, yeah, all right, Mark's like going through something, like I don't have time for it. Totally fine, right? But he's going to go take care of himself in the way that he needs to because, it's not going to be me this time.
Yeah.
And because we have this game set up, I, in those moments, more often than not, I don't take it personally when she says no, right? Because like I would like the same
Yeah.
courtesy done to me. I don't like when people just
Yeah.
like come dump on me when I'm not ready for it, you know?
Plus, it would make the experience for both of you not really optimal,
Right, right.
right?
If she's
Like,
not with
yeah,
it anyway, it's not helpful. Yeah.
yeah. Dude, Mark, this has been solid, man. We've talked about, why men are in the frame of mind to always optimize, why women embrace emotions, like, as long as as long as it results in connection. I love that, by the way. Women will embrace any emotion as long as it results in connection. That's really, really cool. And men, we try to kill negative emotions, even even if it kills connection sometimes.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
I love what you said too around how men create a wall, you know, around the village, and then women inhabit the village and enrich it, right? The villain, the victim, to the hero, to the guide. Oh my gosh, man, that was like that was awesome. I love that. But the, I am never, ever, ever, based on this interview, going to give my wife the shitty first draft of my emotions. Like, ever. Like, I already kind of knew that didn't feel right, but I didn't understand why. But now I understand why. But um, I want to make sure that the men can find you. And if they want to, you know, connect with you, follow you, and find out more about what you're doing.
For sure. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. We covered a
Me
lot
too.
of ground. So I'm excited to listen to the episode when it comes out. But yeah, if you're listening out there, the best place to find me is menstherapy.online. Everything is there. So we got our own podcast. We're on all the social medias. We're Men's Therapy Online everywhere. But the website, menstherapy.online, everything is there. If you want to work with us or just engage, we have a ton of free stuff that we can give away. I do all kinds of podcasts and videos and stuff. So you want to hear more of me, I'm out there, menstherapy.online.
Rock on, brother. Rock on. Yeah, this was really fascinating. I thoroughly enjoyed this. And it's just in time for the holidays. I mean, Christmas is in just a couple of days. So
Yep.
as we push this thing out. So guys, we'll have all of Mark's links in the show notes. Head on over to thedadedge.com/, 506 for the show. Again, thedadedge.com/, 506. We'll also have a link in there too for we're talking about what it means to, you know, to be a masculine man, a good leader, all these different things, right? As you guys have heard, we've got our very first Dad Edge slash Squire event, which is our rite of passage for fathers and sons. It's going to be in Holly Ridge, North Carolina on April 12th. We still have spots available. Head on over to thedadedge.com/, Squire for that. I will be there as a cadre. My 18-year-old son will be there as a junior cadre, taking your boys through it. But this is an experience you won't want to miss. As Mark alluded to today, the world, man, we are starving for good, masculine, emotionally intelligent, physically fit type of men out there. And Mark, from the bottom of my heart, from all of our listeners, man, thank you for coming on today and just providing so much clarity as you talk through men and emotions and relationship dynamics and women's needs and all these different things, man. It was gold, absolute gold. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a great show. And I just wanted to say to your listeners, like, go to his retreat, like, go to the thing, because I found getting guys to go to this stuff is hard. But once they're there, they love it. So if you're
Yes.
listening and you're like on the fence, like, just do it. Just do it. And I guarantee you're going to love it. You're going to be like filled with something that you've never been filled with before, right? Like, it's a need that a lot of guys we don't even know we have. And to get met is like really powerful. So pull the trigger.
Agree with you, brother. Agree with you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on.